At the beginning, Kazuaki Okabe was studying and thinking to himself that his name was Kazuaki Okabe, a second year in high school. While studying, he reflected that he spent all his free time studying even on the way to school and during breaks, so that he would not fail his exams. He firmly told himself that he refused to give in to any worldly desires. However, his classmate Kiara Sano kept locking eyes with him. Seeing her, he wondered if she might be in love with him. He immediately gasped internally and told himself that was close, he had almost gotten the wrong idea again. Frustrated with himself, he questioned why he kept reading too much into these things. At that moment, Nina commented that the term had just started, and he was already studying, calling it admirable. She also remarked that it looked like he still did not have any friends, though. He replied that he did not mind and explained that he had decided to focus on his studies during high school. She responded that if that was the case, then she guessed she would have him all for herself again this year. He thought about Hina Nishina, noting that she was cheerful and popular, the complete opposite of him. Trying to calm himself, he reasoned that this was just how extroverts behaved. She suddenly noticed his face and pointed out that it was beet red, asking if he was okay. He answered that he was fine, but internally admitted that he was not fine at all. She stared at him and mentioned that it was their second year in the same class, and once again, their seats were next to each other. She joked that it had to be fate at that point. Hearing that, he wondered why she kept saying things that led him on. Nervously, he told her that he thought it would be best if she did not say things like that. Confused, she asked what he meant. Blushing, he explained that it was because she was cute. She froze for a moment, tilting her head in confusion while blushing slightly. Meanwhile, he panicked internally, thinking that he would end up getting the wrong idea again. He suddenly gasped and worried that what he had just said might have sounded creepy. Curious, she asked what he meant by that and told him to explain. Flustered, he replied that he just wanted to study. At that moment, Kiara walked over to him and stood right in front of his desk, leaning her face close to his. Surprised, he wondered what was going on with her. She softly called his name, asking, "Kazuaki, Okabe-kun?" He responded hesitantly. She then placed a piece of paper on his desk and told him that it was her contact information before calmly walking away. Shocked, he blurted out in confusion. Nina asked whether he knew Sano. He immediately replied that he did not know her at all. She commented that Sano was mysterious, beautiful, and with a nice figure, and that she had never seen her talking to any friends either. Yet she had just given him her contact information. Laughing, she suggested that Sano probably wanted to be friends with him and congratulated him. However, when she noticed him blushing, she slowly stopped laughing and looked at him curiously. Meanwhile, he began wondering if it could be that she was actually in love with him. Later, while walking outside, he firmly told himself that he would not get the wrong idea. He reasoned that she probably had a good reason for giving him her contact information. Suddenly, someone called out to him excitedly, greeting him as Aki-kun. He recognized her as Rui. She happily said that it had been a while and that she was glad they were attending the same school again. He thought about Rui Kyuan, remembering that she was his childhood friend who lived nearby and was a year younger than him. Noticing the stack of letters she was holding, he asked if those were love letters. Surprised that she had already received so many on the first day of the new term, she casually confirmed that they were. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew past them, causing several letters to fly into a nearby fountain. Rui cried out in alarm. He warned her to be careful with her new uniform. However, she insisted that it was fine and hurried to retrieve the letters, explaining that the people who wrote them had done so while thinking of her. Smiling warmly, she said she could not let them go to waste. Watching her, he thought that she was incredibly cool. He offered his handkerchief so she could dry them. She thanked him with a smile. He remarked that she was still as cool as ever. Blushing slightly, she teasingly asked if he was falling for her all over again. She added that she could say the same about him, he was still just as kind as ever. Embarrassed, he awkwardly thanked her. He clenched his hands nervously while she laughed. At that moment, several girls called out to Rui from behind. She smiled and told him she was glad they had the chance to catch up, before saying she would see him later. He nodded in agreement. After she left, he sighed. Suddenly, Kiara appeared behind him. Startled, he exclaimed in shock. Upon seeing her, she casually asked if he wanted to walk home together. Confused, he questioned it internally, wondering why. She asked if he did not want to. Blushing, he quickly clarified that it was not that, but he hesitated to explain further. She simply smiled. In the distance, Rui noticed the two of them together. The scene shifted to Kazuaki and Kiara, walking side by side. Nervously, he asked what it was that she wanted from him. She looked confused and replied that she did not want anything in particular, she had simply wanted to walk home with him. Internally, he admitted that he was scared because he had absolutely no idea what she was thinking. She then said that there was actually one thing. Curious and tense, he waited for her to continue. Smiling, she asked if she could call him Kazu-kun, since his name was Kazuaki. He reacted in shock but awkwardly agreed. He noticed that she looked happy and slightly flushed, which made him blush as well. She then suddenly remembered something and asked him to give her his contact information too. Completely confused, he wondered what in the world was going on. Later, the scene shifted to him studying while looking completely dazed. Satori told him to focus and lightly knocked his head. He thought about Satori Inoue, his cousin who attended the prestigious college he was aiming for, and who also served as his tutor. He explained that a lot had happened that day, leaving him a bit distracted. After a pause, he suggested that since it was the first day of the new term, maybe they should call it quits for the day. However, he quickly insisted that he wanted to continue studying a bit longer. She patted his head and agreed that they could push for a little while longer. Blushing slightly, he reassured himself that he had made up his mind not to get the wrong idea again. His thoughts drifted back to the past to his older sister's friend who used to visit their house often. He remembered how she would cheerfully announce that she had come to see him and even hug him excitedly. Embarrassed, he would complain that it counted as sexual harassment even if the genders were reversed. She would simply laugh it off. He had always thought that she liked him too much. All the affectionate touching and sweet words had been enough to confuse a teenage boy. However, during the winter of his third year in middle school, right before the high school entrance exams, she suddenly married someone else. The shock had been devastating. He had been convinced that they both felt the same way, and the heartbreak had completely disrupted his studies, causing him to fail getting into his first-choice school. Back in the present, Satori commented that he had been doing so well with his studies before getting sick right before the exam. He quietly thought that she had no idea about the heartbreak he had gone through. Needless to say, he had no intention of letting anyone find out. As she laughed, he reflected that, although he acted serious on the outside, he was actually overly self-conscious on the inside and constantly thought about romance. Blushing, he asked Satori how she managed to overcome worldly desires. He explained that he had seen how serious she was about studying and wanted to be like that too. If she had any hidden tips, he begged her to tell him. She simply repeated the phrase hidden tips, then made a silent gesture and said that it was a secret. Shocked, he thought that she was refusing to teach him the one thing he truly needed to know. She then added that it was important to desire things every now and then. At that moment, his phone received a notification. Satori commented that it was unusual for him to get a message. He checked it and realized that it was from Sano. The message read, "Let's get along well tomorrow." Blushing, he once again wondered if she might actually be in love with him. However, he immediately scolded himself internally and insisted that he absolutely would not get the wrong idea. That night, the perspective shifted. Nina was heading for a bath, Rui was sitting on her bed, and Satori was standing nearby. Each of them remembered the expression Kazuaki had made earlier while blushing. At the same time, all three of them thought that he made that kind of face in front of other girls, too. They had believed they were the only one. Nina puffed her cheeks and thought that he had even called her cute. She reminded herself that she was cute and had a huge chest. Since he had been sitting next to her for the second year in a row, she felt she should obviously be number one. Meanwhile, Rui stared blankly at a picture while thinking about the past, remembering how he once said he liked cool people. She believed she had become cooler than any other girl, and since she was his only childhood friend, she assumed she should be his number one. At the same time, Satori was crying while drinking. She wondered if he liked smart and mature girls, since he had always praised her so much. Having known him since he was a baby, she believed she understood him better than anyone. Simultaneously, all three of them thought about him. Nina thought of Kazuaki. Rui thought of Aki-kun. Satori thought of Okabe. Each of them came to the same painful conclusion, wondering if he was not actually into them, and so began a romantic comedy where everyone's self-consciousness had festered into something almost pathological, a rom-com full of misunderstandings. The scene then shifted to Kazuaki sitting at his desk. While looking at him, Nina thought to herself that Hina Nishina, the girl who sat next to him, was the only one who talked to him in class. She reflected that Hina was cheerful, cute, and kind, and that was exactly why she had fallen in love with him, right? Blushing slightly as she watched him, another thought crossed her mind. At least, that was what she had believed until yesterday. Earlier that morning, while walking toward the classroom, she had been thinking that even with a cutie like herself sitting beside him, if a pretty girl like Sano started talking to him, Okabe might get completely flustered because he was not used to dealing with girls. Still, she reassured herself that it was not like she cared. Sliding the classroom door open, she greeted him with a cheerful, "Morning, Okabe." As she sat down, she began to comment that it looked like he was already studying. He simply replied with a calm, "Morning." At that moment, she noticed Kiara standing beside his desk. Startled, she thought to herself that Sano was already there. She greeted her politely, saying good morning to Sano as well. At the same time, she could not help thinking that it was still morning and they were already flirting. With a teasing tone, she remarked that the two of them must have gotten close overnight. Kazuaki reacted in confusion, asking what she meant by close. He explained that it was not like that at all, it felt more like he was simply being observed. Kiara had been staring at him quietly the entire time. Suddenly, she gasped and quickly apologized, asking if she had been bothering him. He replied that she had not been bothering him. He had only been wondering why she kept watching him. Flustered and blushing, she started to answer but stopped midway. Instead, she hurriedly excused herself and ran away, telling him she would see him later. He awkwardly responded that it was okay. Watching the interaction, Nina could not help thinking that Sano was incredibly cute. Then she glanced at Kazuaki and realized that if he kept looking at someone that cute up close, he would surely fall in love with her. Trying to hide her thoughts, she awkwardly spoke up and commented that it was nice that he had made a friend. He jokingly asked if she was his mother. He then added that he was only at school to study, and that it was not like he wanted to make friends or anything. Hearing that, she reminded herself that he had always been like that, studying obsessively. However, he continued by saying that Sano had been hanging around him a lot since yesterday. Then he called her name. She responded with a curious, him. Blushing slightly, he hesitantly asked whether she thought Sano might like him. Hearing that, Nina felt a surge of jealousy. She thought that he was clearly thinking about Sano, even though until yesterday he had been calling her cute and saying things like that. Deep down, she felt that she was the one he should be wondering about. Still, she quickly corrected herself and answered calmly. She said that Sano had been very forward, so anyone might get the wrong idea. He immediately asked if that meant it really was just a misunderstanding. She explained that Sano was hard to figure out, and since she had not actually confessed to him, he was probably just overthinking it. Kazuaki looked relieved and said that had to be the case. Nina forced a small smile and agreed. Gratefully, he thanked her and said he was glad he had asked her. He explained that she was the only person he could talk to about these kinds of things. Those words caught her off guard. The phrase, "the only one," echoed in her mind. Slowly, a smile spread across her face. She repeated the words in her head again, she was the only one. Blushing brightly, she turned away with a small huff before confidently telling him that when he needed someone to talk to, he knew who to come to. She proudly added that he could talk to her about anything, even about which girl he liked. Leaning closer as she said it, both of them suddenly became embarrassed. Kazuaki quickly leaned back and insisted that there was no girl like that. She echoed his statement in surprise, but when she saw his blushing face, she began to feel reassured. It did not look like he was in love with Sano after all. After all, she had known him much longer. Just as she was thinking that, a classmate nearby suddenly commented that it was rare to see Sano and Okabe talking together. Nina glanced over but quickly dismissed it in her mind, telling herself it was not a big deal even if he talked to Sano. Another classmate then turned to her and mentioned that she was close with Okabe, right? Caught off guard, she hesitantly replied that they simply sat next to each other in class. The classmates laughed and said that the two of them always looked like they were having fun talking together. One of them confidently declared that Okabe was definitely in love with her. Hearing that, Nina was stunned. She quickly laughed it off and said there was no way. But internally she felt thrilled. She thought that it had to be true after all. Everyone around them seemed to think so. Surely she must be number one in his heart. Later, the scene shifted again. Nina was walking home when she suddenly noticed someone ahead of her. Curious, she realized that it was Kazuaki. She thought it was unusual because she did not normally see him on her way home. She called out to him. But then she noticed another girl standing beside him. Surprised, she wondered who the girl was. Looking closer, she realized that the girl was incredibly pretty. Rui turned toward Kazuaki and asked who she was. Hearing Rui call him Aki-kun, Nina felt even more confused. Kazuaki introduced Nina, explaining that she was Nishina from his class. Nina awkwardly greeted them. He then introduced Rui Kuon, explaining that she was a year below them, his childhood friend, and someone who lived nearby. Rui warmly asked whether Aki-kun was getting along well with everyone in class. Embarrassed, Kazuaki tried to stop her from saying too much. But Rui continued, saying that she worried about him because he had spent all of elementary school with only her. Hearing that, Nina was shocked. Watching how close the two of them stood, she tightened her grip on her bag. Forcing a polite smile, she commented that the two of them seemed to get along very well. Then she turned away and said she would be going that way. As she walked off, she called back that she would see him tomorrow and said goodbye to Rui as well. Kazuaki awkwardly replied. Nina hurried away, her face flushed and her cheeks puffed in frustration. As she walked, she thought about how he seemed close to girls, other than Sano, especially Rui, who was his childhood friend. Compared to that, she had only been in the same class as him for a year. She just happened to talk to him a little more than the others. In the end, she was still only a classmate. With a frustrated pout, she thought that she had believed he had nothing to do with girls. She had thought she was the only one. Annoyed, she silently complained about him, insisting to herself that it was not like she liked him anyway. Suddenly, she heard him call out from behind her. Still caught in her thoughts, she finished the sentence in her mind, insisting again that she did not like him, but she turned around and asked what was wrong. Kazuaki apologized for asking so suddenly, but asked if she wanted to study together on Saturday. He explained that he could have asked her the next day, but since he had run into her now, he thought he would ask. Nina blushed and agreed. However, she pointed out that it really had come out of nowhere and asked if she would not get in the way of his studies. He replied that if anything, he wanted her to come. Seeing his tense expression, she became even more convinced that he was interested in her. In her mind, she concluded that he was being incredibly forward. He let out a relieved sigh and said he was glad. With a teasing smile, she remarked that it was just like him to invite her to a study session instead of a date. Flustered, he immediately reacted in shock at the word date. Laughing softly, she told him there was no need to get so flustered, and added that she was looking forward to it. The scene then shifted, showing Rui surrounded by several girls who excitedly praised her. They commented that Rui-sama looked cool again today, and that they were huge fans. One of them mentioned hearing that she was a model, while another added that she had been the ace of the volleyball club in middle school. They continued admiring her, saying she was incredibly cool. Hearing this, Rui calmly thought to herself that they were right, she was cool. As she looked ahead, another thought crossed her mind. That was exactly why, at that moment, one of the girls excitedly said that Rui's name itself sounded cool. Rui reacted with slight confusion. Her mind suddenly drifted into a memory. In the flashback, a younger Rui had asked whether having a cool name was a good thing. Kazuaki had replied enthusiastically that it was. Smiling, he explained that he liked cool things. Hearing that back then, Rui had thought to herself that if he liked cool things, then he must like her too. Ever since that day, she had believed that Aki-kun liked her. Back in the present, she was blushing slightly as she walked when she noticed him ahead, yawning as he walked. She called out to him. With a smile, she greeted him, "Good morning." He returned the greeting. Nearby, girls immediately reacted in surprise, wondering who he was and asking whether he was a second year. They also wondered how the two of them knew each other. Rui turned toward them and casually explained that he was her childhood friend. The girls responded warmly, saying that was nice. Internally, Rui thought that was true, at least for now. Looking toward him again, she heard him remark that she was as impressive as always. She continued walking with the girls, but inside her mind, she imagined what he must be thinking. She believed that he must be surprised after not seeing his childhood friend for so long, especially now that she was even cooler and more popular than before. But she reassured herself that he had no reason to feel anxious. After all, the two of them shared a special bond as childhood friends, and she believed they were destined to end up together. Just then, she turned her head and saw Kiara greeting him. He greeted her back. Rui's expression turned blank as she thought to herself that it was happening again today. Looking at Kiara, she recognized her as the same girl from before. With a tense expression, she remembered that the two of them had met when walking home earlier. She began wondering who that girl really was and what she meant to Aki-kun. And it was not only her. Rui also remembered the other girl from yesterday on the way home. He had said they were classmates, but Rui had noticed something different. The image of Nina's face briefly appeared in her mind. One of the girls beside Rui called her name, bringing her back to the present. Rui quietly concluded that the look on that girl's face had been the expression of someone in love. Determined, she thought that she needed to make sure. She called out to him. Suddenly, she stepped forward and slammed her hand against the wall behind him, pinning him between her arms. Trying to maintain her composure, she told herself to act cool. Then she asked him who that girl from earlier was. Keeping him between her hands, she continued questioning him, asking him to tell her. Deep inside, she wondered if she was still his number one. Kazuaki nervously explained that the girl was simply his classmate. Rui repeated the phrase, asking if she was really just a classmate. He confirmed that she was. Rui stared at him carefully, silently questioning whether that was really true. At that moment, he suddenly pointed out that she was standing too close. Startled, Rui immediately stepped back. Blushing in embarrassment, she began panicking internally, wondering if she had gone too far. She worried that she might have looked desperate and ended up appearing lame. As she anxiously wondered what to do, Kazuaki suddenly commented that she was cool. Confused, she asked what he meant. Blushing slightly, he explained that it was pretty amazing that she could confidently push someone against a wall like that. He said most people could not do something like that, but she could because of her looks. To him, it looked really cool. Hearing that word again, Rui repeated it in her mind. Blushing, she interpreted it as confirmation that he liked her. Smiling proudly, she convinced herself that things were the same as back then and that he still liked her. With that confidence, she commented that it seemed like he was fitting in well in his class and even getting close with his classmates. He did not respond. Seeing that, Rui thought to herself that he seemed to have more girls around him now. She admitted that it was not strange since he was in high school, but still, with a proud expression, she reassured herself that it was not a problem. After all, she believed she was the coolest one, and Aki-kun liked cool girls. She apologized for stopping him and said she would be going now. Just as she turned to leave, he suddenly called out to her and asked her to wait. She looked back in confusion. He explained that he was planning to hold a study session at his place and asked if she would like to come. For a moment she remained silent, repeating his words in her mind. Then she happily accepted, saying she would love to come and that they had not spent time together like that since elementary school. Kazuaki quickly clarified that it would really be for studying. Rui simply smiled to herself. In her mind, she felt reassured that even if he became close with other girls, his childhood friend would still be number one. The scene then shifted again. Kiara was speaking to Kazuaki, asking whether he had invited her to the study session. He confirmed that he had done exactly what she had told him to do. He explained that he had invited Nishina and the others as well. Kiara blushed slightly. He then asked whether she was truly okay with it, since she did not know Rui. With a bright and happy expression, she thanked him. Kazuaki admitted that even though it was only for a study session, it had not been easy inviting those girls over to his house. Kiara casually replied that he should have simply invited them himself. Confused, he asked why she had made him do it instead. She froze for a moment. Then, blushing, she explained that it was because it was him Kazu-kun. There would have been no point if she had done it herself. Kazuaki was left wondering what that even meant. Even so, he realized that whenever Sano asked him to do something, he somehow could not refuse. Then another thought occurred to him. He realized that he had forgotten to tell the others that inviting them had actually been Sano's idea. Still, he assumed it would probably be fine. At that moment, none of them knew that something far bigger was about to begin. None of them realized that a battle was about to take place. The scene then shifted to Nina walking, while recalling what Kazuaki had told her earlier. He had explained that they would be studying at his place and that they could meet up at the station. Thinking about it now, she realized it would be their first time meeting outside of school, and it would be at his house. Blushing, she could not help thinking that it was a little pervy. She had not expected something like that from Okabe. Still, she reassured herself that she was not some easy girl, so there was no way anything would happen. As she walked out of the station, another thought crossed her mind. Even so, she had still decided to wear a cute, matching pair of underwear. Clenching her fist in embarrassment, she quickly insisted to herself that there was no way she was showing it to him. It was only just in case. At that moment, Kazuaki approached her and apologized for keeping her waiting. She began to greet him, but her voice trailed off when she noticed that Kiara was standing beside him. Seeing Kiara smiling next to him, Nina immediately thought that she had known this would happen. Of course, Sano would show up too. There was no way Okabe would try to hang out alone with her. She had known that all along. Still, he could have at least told her who he had invited. Then again, she admitted that it was partly her fault for not asking. Blushing again, She realized that if she asked why it was not just the two of them, it would make it seem like she had been hoping for that. Suddenly, Kiara commented that Nina's outfit looked very cute. Startled, Nina asked what she meant. Kiara walked closer and repeated that Nina's outfit was cute. Surprised that Sano was complimenting her, Nina quickly returned the compliment, telling her that she looked very cute too. At the same time, Nina quietly wondered why Okabe was still wearing his school uniform. Kiara then commented that going to a boy's house was a bit nerve-wracking, right? Flustered, Nina quickly replied that she was used to it. However, in her mind, she immediately admitted that it was a complete lie. It was actually her first time. Kiara responded that if that was true, it was impressive. Nina internally panicked, thinking that it was not true at all and not impressive either. She wondered why she had lied. Just then, Kazuaki announced that they had arrived. Kiara stepped inside and politely thanked him for having them. As Nina entered the house, she thought to herself that this was Okabe's home. But then she suddenly noticed someone else sitting there. Surprised, she realized that there was another girl. Rui greeted Kazuaki, complaining that he had taken long enough. She said he had left her there alone while he went to pick up the other girls and called him mean for doing that. Kazuaki awkwardly apologized. Rui continued complaining, saying she had been extremely lonely waiting by herself. In her thoughts, Rui recalled arriving earlier and saying that it had been a long time since she had been in his room and that it looked exactly the same as before. At that moment, she had believed it would be just the two of them. However, Kazuaki had immediately told her that he was going to pick up the other two. Back in the present, Rui complained that she had been forced to wait for over 10 minutes and asked if he knew how that felt. Kazuaki replied that since she had been there many times before, he thought she would be fine. Hearing that, Nina was shocked that Rui had already been there many times. Rui casually explained that it was from when they were little because they were childhood friends. Blushing slightly, Rui thought to herself that since they had known each other since childhood, he often ended up spoiling her. She felt that he could not help it. Nina silently repeated the words, "back when they were little," in her mind. Soon, everyone sat down together. Kazuaki then suggested that they get started. The scene showed the group studying, though Nina quietly thought that the atmosphere felt extremely awkward. At that moment, Kiara opened her bag and said that she had brought some snacks for everyone. She asked which ones they wanted. Kazuaki thanked her. Nina noticed that Kiara had brought a lot of snacks. However, Kazuaki apologized and said that he wanted to focus on studying, so the three of them could go ahead and enjoy the snacks themselves. Nina wondered what was wrong with him. Then Kiara calmly suggested that in that case, she could feed the snacks to him. Both Rui and Nina stared at her in shock. Kazuaki blushed and reacted in confusion. Seeing his reaction, both Rui and Nina were stunned. They could not understand why he looked so happy while blushing so much. At the same time, both girls began thinking the same painful thought, so he had not been interested in them after all. Suddenly, Rui spoke up and asked if she could do it too. In her mind, she decided that she would put a stop to this. Kiara and Nina both looked at her in surprise. Meanwhile, Nina thought that she did not want to sit there watching Okabe get sandwiched between two beautiful girls. Standing up suddenly, she insisted to herself that it was not because she liked him or anything. Then she said that since Okabe had already said he did not want any snacks, they should give them to her instead. Kazuaki agreed. Kiara reacted in surprise but then accepted the idea. She began feeding the snacks to Nina and Rui instead, smiling as she asked if they were good. Both girls ate them. Rui commented that food tasted surprisingly good when someone else fed it to you, though she quietly admitted to herself that she had wanted to be the one feeding him. At the same time, she worried that she might look like a complete glutton. Meanwhile, Kazuaki felt relieved, thinking that at least things would not become awkward now. Suddenly, his eraser fell to the ground. Thinking that this was probably for the best, he leaned down to pick it up and returned to his normal position. At that moment, Kiara suddenly spoke. Leaning close to Nina's ear, she quietly told her that her underwear was cute too. Nina immediately grabbed her clothes and blushed intensely, asking if Kiara had seen them. Kazuaki also blushed deeply and quickly apologized, explaining that he had not meant to look, but had accidentally seen them. Nina remained red-faced, but eventually said that since it had been an accident, she would forgive him. However, inside, she thought that it was a good thing she had worn a cute pair today before immediately scolding herself, because there was nothing good about it at all. Just then, the door suddenly opened. Satori stood there with a blank expression and calmly said that what she was seeing looked like immoral relations.
By the way, if you enjoyed the video, maybe consider liking and subscribing, pretty please?